Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. This is almost starting our new schedule of the Ginge and Pedro show.
Yeah.
Very soon, here in a couple weeks, we'll be starting a new weekly schedule where we'll be moving from Sundays to not Thursdays. I think it was Tuesdays.
It
Pedro,
was
is that a new
Tuesdays.
day?
It's Tuesdays. Yep.
Okay,
It's all my fault, guys. It's all my fault. The
it is
Sunday schedule
Pedro.
got a little bit tricky for me, so now we're
If
moving
if you
moving
enjoyed
stuff
your Sunday
around.
mornings with Ginge and Pedro, you're not
Yeah.
going to have that anymore. So be sure
Yeah.
to send Pedro a series of angry tweets about it. I'm
Correct.
sure that he
So
will
no.
appreciate that very much. No, but with the loss of one show comes the start of another. We have our new weekly show, like I mentioned, and with that, we've got our first guest. But without further ado, let me just go ahead and bring her on. Melissa Flores, comic writer
Yeah.
extraordinaire.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Bienvenida, Melissa.
Gracias. I'm so happy
There
to
you
be
go.
here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey,
We've
got
got Chris
Fisk.
Fisk in the chat. What's up, buddy?
What's up,
Coming by,
buddy?
Chris. Great creator himself, Infinite Tales Chronicles. Okay, so Melissa, how's it going? How's the weather over there?
It is
Small talk.
fantastic. I mean, I feel so lucky. I've talked to other people and it's like 100 and something wherever they are. And over here it stays a nice 86 degrees, 90 degrees, which is
Man,
relatively good and very cool in the morning and evenings. So weather is great. I love being
beautiful.
in LA.
Very nice. Do you go out hiking a lot, or do you go out and see the scenery any, or?
You would think I would, given where I live, but I'm kind of, especially nowadays, I tend to just be a hermit and stay in my little cave. I don't know if you can see my beautiful little studio cave. This is where I stay the majority of my day. I try to get out in the morning and do some walking and stuff. My girlfriend's a big hiker, but
Very good.
um, I'm actually looking into getting one of those walking treadmills, so I'm just not sitting on my butt because I just feel like my butt is just getting so flat now, and it makes me sad.
I
Yeah, you
actually want
gotta.
one of those myself with a standing desk. I've been eyeing this. I think it's called an uplift desk. It's just like a regular standing desk, really, except the cool thing is underneath you can attach a hammock. They sell like a hammock. Yeah, the hammock's not very big, and it looks like it would have a hard time even fitting like your average sized person. But it still is worth a try to me. Like, and
That
also I just want a
sounds.
standing desk. Pedro, there'd be no way you'd fit, bro.
That sounds so lazy, man.
I
I'm
like it.
worried. I'm worried about you.
Naps are important.
They
Yeah.
are. For
Yeah, they
writers, I think Melissa and I are on the same page here. Pedro, he's the artist, so
Yeah.
maybe he works a little harder. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not easy for those guys for sure. I feel like I cheat
Mhm.
because I just write things in letters and then they just, I'm like, okay, now
Yeah.
your turn. And they're like, okay, it's going to take me a month. I'm like, that much? No.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I mean, it depends on how much the artist enjoys to draw. Cause I mean, if you're drawing something you don't like, yeah, it will feel like here you are, and then you want to kill somebody. But if you're enjoying what you're doing, like, the story's good, then no, dude, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris says, with a little note about standing desks. Standing desks scare me because I'm afraid mine would be a Decepticon. Ever see those things transform between modes? I haven't, but that's something to look out for. I will be checking that in the Amazon description.
Yeah, that was a Decepticon. Didn't that happen in that awful movie? The awful Transformers movie. I think it was the second one. I don't know. They're like 12. But
Which one? Dun-dun-dun.
yeah, there was like a transforming desk at some point.
I've seen two Transformers
fun.
movies, the first one and the Bumblebee one, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, Bumblebee was good because it's not that like Michael Bay universe, like explosions and synthesizers going at the same time. That grows old fast.
Here's what interests me about Michael Bay. Myself, and I think a lot of people also forget that his first movie was Bad Boys, and then after that was Armageddon. Which,
Yep.
I mean, to me, I guess those are like big explosive action movies, but those are two of some of the better movies probably in his catalog. You know what I mean? So for him to go from that to Transformers, which, I mean, this isn't a shit on Michael Bay episode. Maybe we can do that next time. But anyways.
I mean, it is one of those things where I think people underestimate what producers bring to a table. And I think a lot of times what happens with these bigger directors is that they get so big, nobody can tell them no anymore. And so that's why you tend to see their first movies be relatively good. And then as they get more bombastic and a little crazier, you're often seeing what happens is, a lot of times they'll get final cut, like in their contracts and that sort of thing. And you don't have a producer who's good at, working with the director, kind of needling it down and helping keep things a little less insane. So yeah, I think producers are what's missing sometimes with some of these bigger directors who.
Yeah, Michael Bay needed a producer that would tell him like, "Dang, it's not a line." So enough of that. Let's go. We got bigger fish to fry. We have an awesome project to show you. Melissa is a freaking ace. Well, just for what I've seen, so I'm very excited to see what she brings.
Let me say hello to the chat real quick. We had a couple more friends come by. I know Ashton Jackal, my buddy Ashton. He's been on the show before. He is actually a fan of Radiant Black, and I think he's collected most of those issues. So shout out to him. Amanda B in the chat. What's up, Amanda? Are my clocks wrong? Nope. We just had to reschedule to a little earlier. No problem.
It's my bad. My fault, guys. Sorry.
Hey, it's a lunch show, so
yes, that's actually the fun. Grab your Chinese and let's go. Bumblebee was a great film, definitely better than Tumbling Car Engines Bayverse. All right, good stuff. Okay, so Melissa, please, could you tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer? What were some of your earliest influences growing up? And what was that thing that pushed you to want to be a writer? If you can.
Well, I think ever since I was a little kid, I've just been obsessed with stories and with worlds. I was the one that read every book she could get their hands on. I was the one that was obsessed with movies. I think the first real fandom I fell in love with was Star Trek Voyager and Xena Warrior Princess. Like I just would wait every week for those shows. I was obsessed with them. I always was thinking about them. And when I got into my teen years, I discovered fan fiction, and then all bets were off. It was, what people are writing stories about their favorite shows and aren't able to stop thinking about them. And so that's, I think, how I fell in love with writing. I was always obsessed with words and with stories, and then just being able to see fan fiction, what people were doing with their favorite shows, and the idea, it never occurred to me that I could actually be one of the people actually creating that content until I saw people creating fan fiction. And I went to a very heavy math and science high school, and it was, again, one of those things where I thought I was going to be a doctor. And then I took so much math and science. I interned at Nissan. I did all this incredible stuff that I feel like the other side of my brain just exploded. So by the time I went to college, it was pretty clear that I wasn't going to be an engineer and I wasn't going to be a doctor. I was probably going to be a creative. And that was as far as I had figured out. Thankfully, I lived in LA, which is, if you want to, and I went to USC. So I was in a good position, but maybe less of a position than somebody that knew exactly what they wanted to do. I minored in theater. And then when I graduated college, I got a job as a receptionist for a couple different places and ended up at FX Networks right about the time John Landgraf came over. And John Landgraf, if you don't know, is the president of FX, incredibly brilliant, kind man. His big show that he was doing before he came to FX was Reno 911. And
love Reno.
He kind of did this creator's first kind of mentality at FX, which I thought was really interesting, which he'd bring these incredible showrunners. And at the time, that was very new and very different. He brought in this creative writer directors and basically said, I want you to do the show the way you want with minimal input from me. I will help you make it better, but that's it. And so that's how he attracted people like Steven Bochco and Ryan Murphy and all these incredible creators. And so you kind of got this renaissance at FX at the same time I was there, which was Nip Tuck and Over There and The Shield and all these incredible shows.
The Commish. Nice.
Yeah. And, but unfortunately, it was one of those things where I was a terrible assistant because I had undiagnosed ADHD. And to be a creative executive's assistant, you have to be incredibly detail oriented and you have to be very good at managing schedules. And I was not very good at that at all. And it was actually a different time too. I knew at that point that I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to get on a show. It was very difficult for me being Latina and queer and female. Very different time than what it was. I remember actually getting very close a couple times to get into writers' rooms with support from people. And I remember one time I lost the role just because they were afraid that because I was a woman, I was not going to be able to handle the sexist jokes that were in the writer's room. And so they hired the guy. Those were, and that was a completely, they thought that was completely okay to tell me. And that was just the time that I was working with. They were just like, hey, this is a writer's room full of dudes. And we're just afraid that, if a girl's in there, they're not going to feel comfortable. Like, and as much as we love you, it was one of those things like I kept getting. So I kind of just got frustrated, gave up a little bit. And then I got a job as just a regular assistant to a finance guy while I worked on my own stuff at a company called Savon Capital Group. And I was there for 3 years and they treated me very, very well. It was fantastic because I could write on my own time. And then after about 3 years, I was bored stiff. And so I talked to the general counsel there and basically said, hey, I'm getting kind of bored. I think I'm going to go back to entertainment. I kind of want to see if I can, now that there's some time has passed, if I can actually really start to move my way up. And she's like, well, we might actually have a job for you here. And at the time, they had just bought Power Rangers from Disney and created a company called Saban Brands. And they so they created a company called Saban Brands, and it was they had Paul Frank and they had Power Rangers, and they needed people to develop those shows around those brands. And so I interviewed with Brian Cazzantini, who was incredible, and he thankfully saw potential in me and hired me on as a coordinator, and I worked my way up as a director, and that is how I became a creative executive and a producer. And I loved doing that. It was great. I became basically the de facto Power Rangers brand expert. And part of that job was just basically working with writers on any different thing, not just television. So I kind of fell in love with the different content and the different media, like publishing, movies, features, video games, anything I got to play with. And that's how I kind of fell in love with the process of comic books and all that fun stuff that came from there. And so I was there for 10 years. And again, it was one of those things where I'd been there 10 years. I feel like I'd done everything I wanted to do with the role that I was given. And so by the time that Hasbro bought Power Rangers and I moved over to Hasbro, I was starting to feel a little itchy. So when my job ended with Hasbro, it was at that time where I was like, look, it's been 10 plus years. I feel like I finally got the skills and the connections, and I've put in the hard work at honing what it means to tell a good story, that I feel like now I finally have a real shot. And the world has changed too. I feel like I finally have a real shot at actually making a career as a writer. And it took this was 2 weeks before the pandemic happened, and everything shut down. But thankfully, I had an incredible amount of support, and from not just my girlfriend, but also a lot of amazing colleagues who also agreed that I had talent, and I was able to do some really cool stuff. And it was because of that I was able to do cool stuff like the Dead Lucky and now Power Rangers for Boom.
Got a quick little note here. Ashen Jackal says, I've collected all the issues. Hers will be part of the collection. Talking about the Radiant Black universe. That's actually a good segue into how you got on with the Massive Verse. Is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. So obviously through Kyle Higgins and Power Rangers, could you talk a little bit about how it all sort of came to be?
Of course, yeah. So Kyle and I got to know each other when I was still at Saban Brands. He had come on as the lead writer for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers stories for Boom. He came in with an incredible new perspective. He basically said, I want to write Power Rangers, not as it was, but how it made me feel, which I thought was incredibly insightful because he was writing Power Rangers in this incredible character-driven way. And not going in that way, like I know a lot of people like this short, but there was that short by Adi Shankar that was very like adult, and yeah, and I totally understand why people would like it. I myself did not, because I felt like it was taking Power Rangers and just turning it into something it wasn't, just for shock value, as opposed to what it could be. Yeah. And I feel like Kyle did the opposite. Kyle looked at Power Rangers through that same lens. I want to make it feel like I want a power version of Power Rangers for adults, and created a Power Rangers that I felt honored its roots. It wasn't just, the Black Ranger smoking, like sniffing cocaine and all that other stuff. So
Yeah,
that
it's a hard turn for sure.
I mean, nothing wrong against that. I mean,
if that's where people want to go, but it wasn't the kind of Power Rangers I wanted.
Yeah. I got you.
So,
I kid.
Yeah. He was fantastic. At the time, we had not done anything like that for Power Rangers in publishing. All the stuff we had done was very young. And with the Boom license and those Boom editors, they really had a different vision. And it required a little bit of education for us, for sure.
Yeah.
But we I really got to know and respect Kyle, and really got to get inside his head and see the kind of stories that he was telling. And we challenged each other quite a bit. And he also came to us and said, hey, I want to direct a short film for Shattered Grid, and I want to and I hired him to create the story mode for Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. So we really got to know each other as colleagues and then as friends.
Could I ask real quick?
Yeah.
That because I've actually played that Shattered Grid game, and it is a good bit of fun. It's just the kind of fighter game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is the short you're talking about, is that the Lord Draken short with Tommy, the live action one?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
okay, that was awesome.
Yeah, he did the Shattered Grid event for Power Rangers for Boom, which was our anniversary event, which was incredible, really fun. Him and Ryan Parrott put together this incredible event for us. And to help promote it, he's a director first and foremost. That's what Kyle is. He's a director, and I think you see it in everything he does. But he wanted to direct a live action Power Rangers short, and he came to us and said, "This is what I want to do. You don't have to do anything. You just have to say okay." And thankfully, by that time, we had trusted Kyle enough to be like, okay. And so I was able to be on set with him, and I helped get the approvals through for him. But it was very little that we had to do. He killed it. I just provided some footage and some props.
They could have been gods.
Yeah. As a fan, I'm having a hard time because, I mean, don't let my youthful looks fool you. Like, I was too old to watch Power Rangers, like the TV shows. So I'm more familiar with like the Super Sentai done in Japan in the 80s. And like it's made for kids, even the Japanese material. So trying to make it adult, like I see why you would do something like that. That you will think your fan base is growing up parallel to the franchise, so it makes it more adult, but the charm would be lost. So it should be like a parallel, like, yeah, you remember this is how it makes you feel, but don't go full adult, like introducing drugs and sex and like.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Power Rangers are meant to be heroes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you can do that kind of stuff. You can get dark. Like Lord Dragon was a dark character, and he did very dark things. But I think if you stay true to a brand, and think about what makes that brand special, then you can do those things. They don't feel like so much of you're just doing them for shock value.
For shock value, exactly. That's the thing.
And so that he was very good at that. Ryan Parrott was very good at that. Like those themes in those Power Ranger books are very adult and very dark. But yeah, we ended up really connecting as colleagues and then as friends, and doing some really cool things together. And then when he left Power Rangers, we stayed close. And so he would constantly keep me in the loop about what he was doing. And Radiant Black was one of those things.
Very cool.
And I was very excited for him because I thought it was very cool. And he had put together something really special because Kyle put so much of himself in what he does. And I think that first issue with Nathan and how he was struggling as a writer and like struggling to find himself, like I felt like that was so beautiful, like so different than any other superhero we had seen. And then with Marshall taking the helm, just he's so good at the story. And so when I left, he was one of the people that I talked to, because when I left Power Rangers, I was like, hey, I'm thinking of taking a stab at writing myself. Do you give me an honest answer? Do you think I could? And I asked that of a few people, showrunners, producers, creators, and writers, and Kyle was one of those people. And he said, absolutely, I've seen you work. I think you can do it. And because he knew that, he and I continued to have lunch. We continued to be friends, obviously. And so he said, hey, the Massive Radiant Black is doing really, really well. We have a couple of other mutual friends who are doing their own version of superheroes in this world. He's like, but I really want you to take a shot. Like, would you think of a superhero in a city for me and pitch me a book?
Nice.
And I like, who's going to say no to that?
Yeah.
So
Very few people.
yeah. So a couple weeks later, I had the concept for Dead Lucky, and we kind of massaged it a little together and put together a pitch that went to Image. And then it was up to Image. And thankfully, Image saw potential in the book as well. And that's how we ended up with the Dead Lucky.
Very nice. Okay. So, yeah, that was actually one little kind of behind the scenes curtain we were hoping to peek behind was what was the process with pitching to Image like? And obviously Kyle was sort of familiar with it, but
again, I am very lucky. I definitely put in my time to work and nurture these relationships, but it wasn't like I just went to Image and was like, hey, I got a book. And like, they don't know me from Adam. Like, I was able to make this book happen because one, I had already done a few things for Kyle in the comic book space, so he knew I could do it. But two, he had the relationships to allow me to make the pitch in the first place. It was not like I just went to Image and was like, give me a book. It was a very unique situation that I recognize not everybody has. And definitely put in my time for sure, 10 plus, 20 plus years. But it was one of those things where I was lucky that I had a pre-existing relationship with somebody that was doing very well at Image that allowed me to be able to be the in a position to get this book made. I don't know if I myself, as I am with my resume, would have been able to do the same.
Gotcha. No, it makes perfect sense. And the thing is, like, yeah, being humble enough to say, like, yeah, I don't know if I can do it on my own is a credit to you. So yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, that's the thing. Like most of us are like indie creators, and we're going like with the crowdfunding route. So we're really like interested and say like, okay, what were the steps you took to Image? And yeah, you just said it right away. So it's not like getting there and knocking on the door like, hey, I got a book.
Yeah, it's one of those things. This book would not have happened 100% without Kyle. I wrote the pitch. I came up with the story. But Kyle helped me develop it. He still consults on every script. He helped me put together the team. Like he put French on the book. He put Mattia on the book. We got Michael to edit it, and he edits all the Massive Verse books. So this is absolutely Kyle being the director that he is, being like, I think you people are good. I think the story is good. Let's do something cool with it. And it became a black market narrative book. So it is very much a piece of Kyle's lore as much as it is mine.
Awesome.
Okay, very nice. And the black market narrative, is that Kyle's publishing house?
Yes, that's Kyle's. Yeah, that's essentially Kyle's universe. So that's where all these books live.
So is that different from the Massive Verse, or is
it is a little bit, only that because Black Market Narrative is essentially his company. Massive Verse is the universe in Image that contains all these superhero books that are currently under that banner.
Okay, because I think they launched that the Massive Verse and then a week later launched the Spawn universe, and I was like, man, that's horrible timing. I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the blessing and the curse of Image, right? The Image is creator driven, and so everybody essentially you get to do your own thing. Every single one of us that has one of these books, whether it's Dead Lucky, Rogue Sun, Inferno Girl Red, or Radiant Black, we all own our own books, but we're just very friends cool. First, we all work together in some capacity, and we're all hopefully cool people. I know that everybody else is, and I like to think I am. And so we want to stay together. We want to work together, and we want to make this work into a universe. So there's no overlord telling us the way things are. We're working it out for ourselves.
Very nice. That definitely got to agree with Chris here. Creator owned IPs are the way to go. That's absolutely, yeah. And that's also super, I don't know if gracious is the word of Kyle, or just thoughtful to structure the, working within his universe like that, and still allow you to retain the rights. It's
I mean, every single one of them, but Kyle especially, is very generous with their success, I think. And it is one of those things where, especially in this industry, never ever treat assistants like crap. Never ever see anybody below you as somebody that you're better than them, because in 2 or 3 years they are directors, they are vice presidents, they are the people that remember you and will absolutely lift you up. I would not have gotten the Boom Power Rangers gig had I not known Daphna, the editor, and had her be aware of the fact that I was a writer now. She had, spent 10 years or 6 years with me, seeing all my notes. She had read the preview of Dead Lucky, and I just came up that I was this person now that maybe was ready to take this challenge on. So the true way of Hollywood always is not just going in cold, but it's who you know, and networking, and making sure that people remember you for things. And part of that is doing the same for others, right? When you're in the position to. I'm very new. I'm not in any position to do anything for anybody right now, but hopefully in 5 years, I'll be able to do the same. But it's the idea of, everybody comes up together and everybody works together.
So basically, you have to be a memorable non-asshole.
Be a good person, for sure. There is a fallacy in Hollywood that assholes do whatever they want.
Exactly.
Far and few between.
No.
Very, very few, especially if you're a writer, because writers are producers are the ones that have all the power in Hollywood. So they could probably be jerks if they want to. But if you want to work with people, and if you want to be able to get hired to do stuff, especially as you're coming up, unless you are so connected to somebody, like somebody's son or daughter or whoever, that they cannot, they are told hire you. But if you come in with no connection with, like me, just some random girl from LA who wanted to make it, you have to be easy to work with. You have to take notes well. You have to be a good person, and you have to not be an asshole. And because that's going to make people want to work with you again. You can get hired one time, but that can't mean that you're not going to get hired again. I'm in a writer's room right now. I'm a staff writer on a show right now, and the only reason that works is that because you're writing with 10 other people. You can't.
I'm gonna make a note of that. Don't be an asshole.
Treat everybody well. Everybody.
You might want to get that tattooed on your forehead, Pedro.
On my cheek, right here.
You never know who's going to be in that position in 2 years, 4 years, 10 years.
Yes, that's always another interesting thing people wonder about, is how does somebody reach the quote unquote producer status? Is there kind of like a designated path you take to get there, or how does one become a producer?
I mean, the most tried and true way that anybody will tell you is you start as an assistant and you work your way up. That is how it works. You either start in a mailroom at an agency, or you get hired as an assistant, either a writer's assistant or a producer's assistant, and you just start. I mean, that's the staff. You work your way up. You put in your dues. I had a very hard time with that because I could not afford to. I grew up in a very middle-class family. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I worked, 20 hours a week, and also went to school and tried to get, didn't have a lot of help. My mom worked at USC for 20 years so that way I could get free tuition to go there. It was one of those things where I could not afford to make $500 a week and still pay off my student loans. But a lot of times that is what you have to do. I think it has changed, and I'm grateful for it. But you have to put in your dues as an assistant, and then eventually you get promoted once you've been there long enough and proven that you are mastering the skills needed to become a manager, then a director, then a VP. I mean, my Nathan, who started as a coordinator at Saban Brands, has now been promoted to VP at Nickelodeon. So it does happen. You just have to be hungry, and you have to be willing to do the work, for sure.
Very nice. Yes, I like it. Competency rules the day. Hooray.
Yeah. And initiative, for sure.
Initiative and be agreeable. So yeah, like I come from an animation background that I understand like working with big teams. Like agreeableness is a very huge factor in who succeeds and who doesn't. Because I mean, we call it king shit syndrome. And it's the guy like, okay, you can be as good as you are as an animator, but if you can't work with anybody else, you're nothing to the team, so you're fired.
Exactly. Go be a poet if you don't want to get any notes.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. Okay, so we've kind of spent literally the first half of the show getting to know you a little bit, Melissa, which has been a lot of fun. Now, let's get to know your project a little bit here, the Dead Lucky.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us. Just give us the pitch real quick. What do we got?
So the Dead Lucky is a superhero story told in the Massiverse, and it is about a U.S. Army veteran named Bibiana who has lost most of her platoon in a horrifying accident that she cannot and will not divulge what happened, but it has left her with these electrical powers. And she has been discharged and is now coming home to San Francisco, which is where she grew up, where she was born, but it is not the San Francisco she knows. San Francisco has been privatized by a company named Morrow, who has basically come in and told the government, hey, all this stuff that you guys are doing, we can help fix it. Like your crime is sky high, your, medical bills are terrible. We'll take care of all of it. Let us turn San Francisco, our home city, into the city of tomorrow. So they bring in bots and they bring in all this cyber tech and all this incredible like next gen technology and have turned San Francisco into this incredible tech forward city. But it comes at a cost of privacy, at a cost of moving out and relocated what they see as undesirables, homeless people, lower income people. And so what they have essentially created is a military state, and not everybody's happy with that, including another resistance group called the Salvation Gang, who is trying to push them out. And into that kind of a bit of a powder keg comes Bibi, and she is the spark. Bibi, who is used to being a soldier and keeping this exact same thing from happening overseas, is now kind of faced with the reality that this is happening to her home city. And she does not recognize it. And so she's dealing with a tremendous amount of PTSD and survivor's guilt. And rather than have to deal with all of that, she'd rather just punch things. So she puts together a mech and decides she's going to take on Morrow. And that is essentially the book.
Very cool. Reminds me of, I mean, in a great way, it reminds me of the great movies of the 80s.
Yes. It was in the pitch, I think I said this is Arcane, which is that wonderful Netflix show, meets RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop.
Meets
exactly.
Iron
like,
Giant. Meets Blade Runner. Like it was meant to be very like neon sci-fi fun.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, like the whole like evil corporation thing was distilled with OCP. And dude, like when I hear you talking, it took me right there. So dude, it sounds great. I like it. I like that kind of like more obscure, more so than having like one personality being like the fulcrum of evil. Is just like, okay, this system where everybody's in and nobody can really get out of it just because of selfishness, basically. Because I mean, working for profit, it ends up being selfish if you're harming others. So yeah, like I like that concept. So very, very cool.
Yeah, so I really love Morrow.
Yeah.
So we actually have is this a trailer? Something I shared earlier. Real quick, let me pull this up real quick. Something on the image Twitter. Okay. So, yes. All right. Here we go. Mind if I go ahead and play this, Melissa?
Please do.
This little trailer here.
I love this thing.
Awesome.
San Francisco used to be my home.
Can y'all hear it?
Special. A safe haven. Not anymore. Morrow wants to turn it into the city of tomorrow. Brought in bots. Trying out next-gen cyberware. It comes with a price. One I'm not willing to pay. My name is Bibi. Used to be a soldier. Had purpose, a team. Now, just a mech and a ton of survivor's guilt. a hero, but I'm here, and I'll fight. Who knows? Maybe I'll get a little lucky.
Sweet.
Yeah, we were very lucky. We got Christina V to voice that, and she is incredible. She's done hundreds and hundreds of voices, and she's the voice of the Miraculous Ladybug. And she and I got to know each other when we did a show called Hyperforce. She was one of our Black Hyperforce Ranger. So
nice.
Again, connections, right? Thankfully,
exactly.
we were able to. She was able to do that for us, and I was really, really grateful to her.
Dude, I have two comments and talking about art. Like the simplified backgrounds and the color palette reminds me of Jackie Chan animated adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And
Love Jackie
that's
Chan
something
adventures.
I really love to see because it's just like, dude, it's allowing the shapes to talk.
Yeah.
So you don't need to go into much detail to people recognize this is a building, this is a table, this is a post. Like really, really, like it's artistic. It's really good. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, we're very great. We have an amazing colorist, Namataya, and obviously an amazing artist named in French. And we really worked with them to create a look for San Francisco that felt distinct and different. And we really wanted to go for that cyberpunk 2077, like high saturation kind of look. And then Michael Busatil, I say his name terribly, but he is our incredible editor and designer. So he designed the book.
Yeah,
and,
that was one of the
logo
things that I took away from the most. I'm a bit of a wannabe designer myself, and like this dude completely nailed the. I guess it's like the ghost interface that's supposed to represent.
Yeah, Ghost is her mech.
Right.
So yeah, but no, he did a fantastic job. Michael's incredibly gifted, and he edits every single one of the Massiveverse books. And Becca Carey is also the letterer for most of these books, which I really love because I feel like it gives the Massiveverse books a little bit of continuity in terms of keeping them all in the same universe, but making them feel very distinct and different.
Yes, actually, that's not a bad idea. Having the same letterist do all the books. Okay.
Yeah, she's great.
It's a great idea for the letterer.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
As a letterer, I approve of this.
Yeah, as a letterer, you approve. I see what you're doing, Ginge.
So could you talk a little bit about the inspiration for your main character and sort of the design choices and you know, sort of the creative process of, you know, point A to the finished design?
Sure. The BB, so the superhero version of her, I worked with an incredible artist named Federico Sabatini, and he does, I think he's on Moon Knight now. He does some Marvel stuff. And we talked about what we wanted from the character. And I basically asked for three things. I wanted it to be Toku inspired because of the Power Ranger roots, because I was with Power Rangers for so long. I wanted it to be I wanted there to be a helmet because BB doesn't want to show her face. She wants to be absorbed into this character. And I wanted it to be based on the Mexican Calavera, the Day of the Dead Shooter. And because I wanted, I'm Latino, and I wanted that culture to be represented in the character. And two, because this character is obsessed with death. And that's how she came together. And we wanted the color palette, we wanted it to be very different. And
yes,
and
this was actually one of my favorite pages, if I can real quick. And it was a lot of the composition, but the colors actually remind me a lot of, like, I think Dave Stewart is his name. He was he was Darwin Cook's like main colorist. And Darwin Cook had a really great, like, almost 1950s vibe. That's kind of the color scheme I
Can you go up a bit, Ginge?
Yes.
For example, here, like there, you see like how the light hits the character, which is like very sharp. It's not like blurred or whatever.
I mean, that's Mattia doing incredible work. Yeah. Like even the therapy scene where, you know, you could see it could be considered boring because it's just two people in a room, but he brings a brightness to it that I think is incredible.
Yeah, camera angles and like incredible art would make any scene like amazing.
Exactly.
And
I'm very
here,
lucky with the artists that we have.
Here, like the point I wanted to make, like, is that the how the light hits the character is defining the three dimensionality of it. So you see how the light like embraces the shape of the character. You see, for example, on the bicep, on the far biceps, how the folds of the cloth affect how the light hits it. It's been defined by light. It's nothing more but light. And dude, this is very like they know what they're doing. This is really
they're
good work.
incredible. We're so lucky. I worked with Mattia before on a backup series called The Unleashed, and we're very lucky to have him. Him and French work together very, very well.
Awesome.
So did you put the team together, or was that Kyle?
No, Kyle helped me. So I had worked with French before. He was on Power Rangers for a little bit, and then and he did Radiant Black 12, so I knew who he was. And I had worked with Mattia on The Unleashed. So, but Kyle essentially helped me put the team together for sure. He used his connections, he got them on board. And I was very lucky because, again, like I am a nobody in terms of the comics world. So if I just reached out to these artists and said, "Hey, I'm on a book," they'll be like, "Who are you? Why should I care?" But if Kyle reaches out, then they actually are like, "Hey, I know that book. That'd be exciting to work on something else." So I'm, again, very lucky that he helped me out.
I mean, it's definitely a big opportunity, but it's also really nice of Kyle just to, sort of reach out and help out somebody, because there is a lot of that does sort of seem to be missing with creatives. Not necessarily in every community you go to, but there is a lot of like, I'm going to get mine, and it doesn't really matter. There's almost, I think it's the competitive nature of a lot of people that, you will just sort of maybe sometimes step over somebody to get ahead. It's, there's a lot of that.
I mean, he's very good at creating brands. And like I said, he's a director. He's very good at putting people. This is a black market narrative book. So he does own a piece of it. But the majority, but it is our book. It's French in my books at the end. And I'm very grateful to him for that. It's very cool.
It's very nice. So could you talk a little bit about some of the villains in this story? Morrow, is there sort of any kind of upcoming things we can expect? Any crazy?
Let's not go too much further in the pages though, because I don't want to spoil most.
Let's not spoil it.
My bad.
But
just leave it right here.
So Morrow is how would I put Morrow? It is if it's a company that had incredible aspirations to better the world through technology, and maybe got a little too up its own butt in terms of after a while you start to think you're the best thing ever, and nobody else knows better than you. And you see it a lot. I mean, it is definitely a take on, what if Google decided it was going to become a criminal contractor or not a criminal contractor, military contractors. Amazon at this point is, now employing drones everywhere. So it is one of those things where a company just gets very big very fast, and you have these incredibly this genius people that maybe aren't told enough, know enough, and they'll start to believe in their own hype. And Morrow was those people. They truly believe they are saving the world, but in their heads above the clouds, they have lost sight of the people underneath them, and they have become like ants to them, just people to move, places to move. And that is essentially what Morrow is. I think they truly, truly want to believe they are turning San Francisco into something cool, but they are neglecting what made San Francisco special in the first place. And it is one of those things where they, in their turns, they believe there's no best. They believe they know best, and they don't understand why maybe a corporation owning a city is maybe not the best thing for freedom in America. For them, they're like, well, if we can do it, why can't we? You guys can't do it. We'll do it.
Yeah, that's the question that doesn't ever get asked, really. It's like, well, what is it? What's the saying? We thought we could do it, but we never stopped to ask if we should, or something.
Yeah, like
like
yeah,
that.
you were so busy being obsessed with whether or not you could do it, you never thought whether or not
There
you
you go.
should. Yeah. There's a show called Dark Matter that aired on Sci-Fi by the same creator who did Babylon 5, and that show I thought was fascinating because there was no more countries anymore, there was only corporations. And our government now, with the way the rules are, with the way lobbyists work, there are many like corporations are heavily involved in politics now. And so many political donations are done by corporations so that they could sway interests. And I feel like this is not so far a step forward that it couldn't actually happen if a company were big enough and powerful.
I mean, living in Latin America, I can say that's completely true, and it's actually happening here. Like, for example, we have a copper mine like a couple of kilometers up this road, and they own a town basically.
Yeah.
If you go there, you live in their buildings. They have their own water supply. They have their own energy. They have their own rules. The only thing, they're still paying people with dollars, which is cool. But I mean, if you go back into Latin American history, plantations would have their own currency. So the owner of the plantation will pay the peons or the workers in this currency, and then the owner of the plantation owns a store where he sells the peons. Hey, mom. Sells the peons like the groceries and whatnot. So it's like a loop of money back to the owner. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's
Really nice.
I'm trying not to be political, and I'm trying not to tell a cautionary tale, but I feel like you have to write with what you see around you, and it is one of those things where it's not San Francisco in the massive verse exists maybe 5 years in the future.
Okay, gotcha.
So
I mean,
it exists at the same time as everything else. It just happens to be very technological forward. They've got bots on the streets.
You can get political in your comics as long as you don't get preachy and divert from the storytelling, which there shouldn't be a problem if you talk political topics. Just keep the story entertaining,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
I do think there is a lot of there's never mind the necessarily like the politics of it. There's a lot of reality in the fact that basically your average corporation today is like as powerful as small kingdoms. And I think a lot of them fancy themselves as kings and, don't really have to obey by the same laws everybody else does because they rule,
I've been in the room with billionaires. I can tell you they live a very different life than we do.
Yeah.
There's very little no in their vocabulary. So I definitely can see how quickly your worldview can change when you don't hear no. I mean, it's the same reason why you have celebrities that kind of stop existing in the same world as the rest of us, because when you are treated differently for long enough and you don't have people that ground you and tell you, hey, maybe don't do this, or maybe you're being a jerk, you start to lose touch with the reality, and you truly start believing you are different and you are better and you know best. It can happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. There's something about a sky rise. I think you mentioned something about looking at people like their ants or something earlier. There is something about that, because when you're at the top of a building, a 30-floor building or whatever, and you look down at people, they actually, that's what everybody says, like, oh, they look like ants. You just mean they're so small, but you could sit up there like with your fingers crossed like this and look at the ants.
Yeah.
Very dramatic. Okay. Very cool. So there's definitely a lot going on in this universe just within your own storytelling. Could you maybe talk a little bit about, do we expect to see some Radiant Black, crossover there? Is there going to be some character, some massive verse stuff going on?
We actually had a big long talk about it as all the creators together. Ryan Parrott, Matt Groom, Michael, Kyle, myself. It was one of those things, was that something that we want to allow? And I think where we are right now is that we, as a whole, we live in, our superheroes exist in their own cities. And the idea is, if you like Dead Lucky, but maybe Rogue Sun isn't for you, we don't want to all of a sudden turn this into a Rogue Sun book. And vice versa. If you love Rogue Sun and Dead Lucky is not for you, we're not going to turn this into a Dead Lucky, turn that into a Dead Lucky book. We want to respect the world that every creator builds. And we also I think DC and Marvel are brilliant at doing this, and more power to them, but it's not something we want to do. We don't want to do like a Dark Crisis kind of event where you
I
have to
gotcha.
buy 20
You don't want to do a
different issues.
multiverse? Come on.
Yeah, to make the stories make sense.
Yeah, like the multiverse trap. Like, yeah, you want to know what happens in the X-Men? Buy Quicksilver next issue.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading Quicksilver. Yeah.
What we do, and so you might see, like, for example, Morrow exists in every world, and you see, like, Kyle has a anthology series he has a 4-part series for Shift in the Image anthology books, and they are Morrow exists there. Shift is an ex-Morrow contractor, so the world exists together. But when you actually might be seeing those heroes crossover are Supermassive, and we just announced Supermassive 2, which BB will be in. So she was in Supermassive 1. She was in the last 2 pages, but this time she'll actually be in the proper story. So you'll see those big crossovers in like a Supermassive 2, where you can pick up that book and have that story make sense, and not necessarily have to worry about who's Radiant Black, what's going on, who's this person in a Dead Lucky book.
Right. It's almost like the fun of a one-shot kind of story, if I'm understanding it correctly. Like, going and getting like just a fun, 100-page Justice League story, but you don't have to really worry too much about it interrupting your, sort of bi-weekly read or monthly read or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, those stories matter, and we definitely keep them in mind. So whenever we know, like, I know when Supermassive 2 comes out, and so I'm keeping that in mind as to, okay, what's the last issue of Dead Lucky before Supermassive 2 comes out, and so I know where my character is, so it makes sense for where she is in Supermassive 2. So we're definitely keeping that stuff in mind, but we just don't want to confuse the readers and force them to buy a bunch of books, and like to just understand what's going on in one Dead Lucky trade.
Yep, very nice, and I can assure you that readers actually do appreciate it, just on your average kind of reader base, because everybody's kind of tired of being confused, I think, and that old like bait and switch method. It does tire customers out after a while. So.
Well, I think DC and Marvel can get away with it because they're just such big brands. But I'm a new writer. I'm just trying to get people to get interested in the book. I don't want to confuse them already. I'm just trying to tell the best story I can, and hope people are into it.
That's awesome.
Very good. Yeah, and I read the book, and I have to say I did thoroughly enjoy it. It's a great start for a first issue. Definitely everything you want to see. Setting up the character, setting up. Whatever's going to come next. So very, very exciting stuff. Melissa, we're getting ready to wrap up the show here. We've gone for almost an hour. Is there anything else you'd like to add or plug, or anything that we didn't cover?
Sure. I mean, beyond the Dead Lucky, obviously, Radiant Black, Rogue Sun, Radiant Red all had new issues come out yesterday. Nice. So check those out. They're all incredible books. And Radiant or Dead Lucky is out next week, which I still quite understand or believe in my head. That'll be fun. And then I also after issue 100. I'm starting to write issue 101 for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for Boom Studios, so that'll be out in the next few months. As well as Radiant Pink, which is another Dead Lucky another Radiant Black miniseries based on Radiant Pink that I'm co-writing with my friend Megan Camarena. And that's going to be out late this year. And everything else I can't talk about. But I'm very excited about that.
All right. Well, congratulations to what's definitely been probably a lot of fun for you, just kicking off your comic book career, getting the ball rolling here. So very nice. The Dead Lucky, you said coming out next week. So what's comic book day? Is that Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday. Wednesday here.
Wednesday.
Yeah, okay. So my fellow viewers out there, check your local shelves Wednesday for the Dead Lucky #1. Melissa, we want to thank you for joining us today. Let me say goodbye to the chat real quick. Yep. Our friends over here popping by. We had Ashton Jackal. He's a big Kyle Higgins fan. Chris Fisk. That's so many Chris's. Sugar Chris. Chris Fisk. Good stuff. Thank you for coming by, buddy. Past Master Dan, good guy. Always coming by. Amanda B. Hooray. Alrighty. So that was our episode with Melissa Flores. Melissa, I'm going to bump you to the back real quick. If you don't mind just giving us a moment, we'll be right there with you. All right. Boom. Hot damn. Another episode, my friend.
Yeah, very interesting topic, and a creator we're not really like used to talk to.
Yes.
Like, I feel informed.
Somebody actually mentioned that in the chat. We're getting more interesting creators in. So as a YouTube channel, I think that's in part what we should strive to do. So
it's good. It's good. I wore my tux today, my Soul Glow shirt. Yeah.
Is that the Panamanian tuxedo? Just a
no.
shirt?
This is dude Soul Glow. Come on.
Okay.
Coming to
Let's
America.
get you the Panama Jack hat. I got some sunscreen for you. We'll do the little goggles.
This is an Eddie Murphy classic, and I resent that, Ginge.
All right. Okay. Well, we got our guest in the back, buddy. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us, and we will catch y'all probably up this Sunday with Jose Garcia or Jose Lopez.
I'm looking forward to that one.
So many names. Okay, gang. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.